Okay, I think we're back in business. Back going here. There we go. All right, so first things first, I promised that we would have, so there's the very advanced, and look at this fine gentleman here on the top of the paper. Home, main page, pretty much the entire page is the article about him. It's awesome. Really happy to see it. Not just Georgian College, but obviously someone from our program. Be proud. It's awesome. Okay, so when we left
Sir, I
off,
need to ask a favor from you.
Oh,
I didn't have the physical copy of the paper. I just have the e-copy. So where do I like if in case if I can get it from you maybe, or like I did contact the newspaper guys as well. So like if I can, then they just send me the link. They didn't send me the physical copy.
yeah, I can get it to you.
Yeah,
Yeah, we'll
I'll
figure out a
connect
way.
with you. I'll connect with you after the lectures. And
Sounds great. Yeah, no problem. I can get you the paper.
thank you.
GCSA or something like that. I'm sure we can find a common spot.
Yeah. Are you on
All right.
campus sometime?
No, pretty much never. But I drive by the campus, so I can get it in there. I'll figure it out.
Thank you so much, sir.
Maybe grab a coffee. Always good to see people in person.
Sure, sir.
I much prefer it. Okay, so we left off. We had built this super amazing app. It does nothing. So we built this activity, and the idea here is that we're going to be able to add. Yes, we do have a celebrity. It's impressive, isn't it? We're going to add a restaurant and give it a rating and put it into our database. But before we can do that, we need to connect to a database. So in this course, we're going to use Google's Firebase platform. It's a really pretty elegant solution. It's very well integrated into Android. As you can imagine, right? Like Google owns Android. This is Google's solution for databases. So of course the integration's quite nice. And you can see here, it's for Android, iOS. You can use it for web-based things too. It's just a pretty nice little system here. And it handles our user authentication and everything right out of the box. So it's awesome. Now, in order to use it, you're going to need to have a Google account. So we log out here. So if I go to console.firebase.com, it's going to ask me either choose account, or if I say use another account, I can do that. But it needs to be a Google account. Okay, so I have a personal Gmail. I also have one through my Lakehead. My teacher Lakehead, they use a whole Google system there. So I'm just going to use that one. You can use any Google account. And so if you go to console.firebase.google.com, I'll put it right in the chat. Okay. This is what we should get to, is a screen that says create a project. So I'm going to give it a couple minutes. Some people may have to create an account real quick or something. But this is where we want to get to, is welcome to Firebase. So let me know when you get to here. Let me see in chat. I'm in. I'm going to start keeping stats on how many times Lindsay is the first person to reply. I feel like she's in the 80th percentile. If they're very advanced, add a stat on the fastest person to reply, Lindsay would take the pole position, I'm sure. I'm going to let a few more come in. I know don't want to lose anyone. This isn't hard stuff. It's just a lot of little steps. So in the group chat, for those who are watching this asynchronously, Eric writes, gives give son to wife to have a fighting chance. I guess he was being inundated. How old's your son again? And Lindsay's very competitive. 5 months. Oh my. Yes, 5 months is it's my son's three at the end of December, and at that point when they can move around on their own, it's pretty much impossible to work when they're around. It's because they just take over. 5 months you have a fighting chance if you can get them to sleep or something. All right, so I see at least 3 people have said that they're in, which is a little, we got a little bit more than 3 though in the class. We got 17 going right now. So let's see if we can get that number a little closer to 8 or 9, and then I'll get going. All right, awesome. A couple more. Yeah, that's awesome. My little guy's all into anything with wheels, like construction, like Tonka toy type stuff. He's all over it. Can't get enough of it. Our latest game right now is he's got a toy garbage truck, and he has this play mat that looks like a city street, a city kind of layout. And so we use little pieces of Lego as quote unquote garbage, and he drives his truck around, he puts it into the garbage truck, and then he takes it back to the Lego pile and he dumps it. That's the garbage dump. They're getting creative with how to have fun. All right, so it looks like enough people are in that we can keep going. What we're going to do is let's go back now that everyone's logged in to Android Studio. Now in Android Studio, under the Tools menu, so Android Studio under Tools, if you scroll down, you'll see one of these tools is called Firebase. I'm going to click on that. And you can see there's a lot of things related to Firebase that pop up, but the one that we want is called Cloud Firestore. For me, it's right at the top. When I've taught this class previously, it was in the middle, and some people had it down at the bottom. I have no idea how this thing gets sorted, but what we want is Cloud Firestore, and we want to expand it. So you see there's a little triangle there, click on it, and it should expand. You should see getting started and getting started with Firestore and Kotlin. So click on, yeah, see, so in the group chat, someone, Eric said, mine doesn't say Cloud Firestore, it just says Firestore. That's, I don't know why it's different, but yeah, that's what we want. And we click on getting started with Firestore. I don't know if I can go back. So I clicked on this link, says, we got 2 different ones here. I'm going to click on the one that says Kotlin, just to be safe. And this is what's pretty cool. You do not have those. Let's go back. So do you have something that says Firestore or Cloud Firestore, something like that? So does it look like this? You just click a little down. I don't know, my old version had it this way too. Can you expand it? Okay, good. So I'm going to click on the one here that says, get started with Cloud Firestore Kotlin. And when you click on it, then you'll see several different items here. The most important ones are the first 2. And what we're going to do is connect to Firebase. So click on connect. And because I had it open, I have to agree to the terms and conditions. And because we don't have any projects yet, at least I don't, I can't associate anything. So I'm going to have to create a project. And I just have to warn you, I can't go back once I start this process. So I'm going to go purposely slow But I can't undo too easily here. So yeah, if I'm going too fast, tell me to pump the brakes. So create a project. And you'll see that it imports the name from Android Studio automatically. That's kind of cool. So I'm going to just leave it there and say continue. And you can choose whether or not you want to enable Google Analytics for the project or not. With what we're doing, we're not going to use analytics. Okay. I used mine. I think it's a Cloudfire base here. Cloudfire store. What I used. So I'm going to turn off the Google Analytics because I'm not going to be using any of those features for our class. And then I'm going to say create the project. So I've turned off Google Analytics. And I'm going to say create project. Ah, okay. How did that happen? I don't understand. Okay. This is gonna be one of those days. It said for some reason that I already had this project created, but I don't see any projects here. So why? Hopefully others. Oops. Yeah, I'm gonna call it. There you go. I don't know why that was having a problem there. We're good now. Okay. This is what's really cool is Android Studio and your web browser, whichever one you're using. I typically use Firefox or Chrome. I happen to have Edge open this time. I don't know why, but it works in any of them. And you'll get to a point where it says your project is ready. You click continue. Huh? Okay, so I'm going to go back to Android Studio. And let me just check something up here in the corner. It's this. I always signed in, so I'm not sure why this is showing that I'm not. But I'm going to sign in from Android Studio as well. The way that I did that. If you're having a problem, I'm glad yours look okay. That's good. Or everything breaks. Oh, okay. In the upper right side here, there's like a little person icon. Close things. Okay. So in the upper right corner of Android Studio, I'm going to click sign into Google. And I'll choose and press Android Studio. It could be that I had logged, I was using my personal account for one piece of this. So maybe maybe I was trying to log into my Lakehead account using my personal account or something caused an issue that way. So I'm going to try to reconnect here. Select my project. Okay, been created in Firebase. Next. It says here, now you can use your Firebase, your project, go back to Android Studio, start using your Firebase SDKs. So in my case, the issue was I had signed into Google Console using my Lakehead account, and I had Android Studio with my personal account. So I think that's what caused the little hiccup there. So log in your upper right with whatever accounts you want to use for your Google. I'm going to just pause here. When you get it connected, it should say connected here. Unfortunately, I can't go back and redo it without basically starting a new project. So let's give it a minute. And, if you get yours to just say check connected, Lindsay's improving her stats. We've got it. Miles has got it working too. Great. It's honestly pretty good. In the chat, Eric says it doesn't count that Lindsay said got it if no questions were asked. All right, awesome. So Eric, I think you should just proactively throw a few comments in here throughout the class, and you'll be ahead of it. And you've also got the infant out, right? Like you're in that I called it the 6-month fog. That first 6 months, you know, I wasn't getting enough sleep. It's real confusing. Okay, so you've now got an app, and your app is now connected to Firebase. Okay, so amongst one of the things you'll probably see if I go Android project, is under my app now, I have this Google Services file. So this is the file that I'm not going to put onto GitHub, but you can put into your private GitHub repository because mine's public. But this has all of the key information and client information required to log into my Firebase account. But our project won't work yet. So this is basically like our login information, just like you know, if you had like in Java, if you want to connect to like MySQL, you would pass in like your connection string, username, and password. This Google Services JSON file is kind of the same type of thing. But we need to update our build scripts and our Gradle scripts to know how to use this connection. So that's step 2 in the process here, where it says add Cloud Firestore to your app. So all you're going to do is click on that button, and it shows you what it's going to do is it's going to add this line here to your build.gradle, the project level. And then it's going to, at the module level, going to add in these other Google services and Firebase things. So I just say, I clicked on this button here, step 2, and say accept changes. And now you can see my Gradle syncs in progress. So it's going to take a second to chew through updating my Gradle. And now I'm actually connected into Firebase. So the only thing I think I missed in the path there was making sure my my account was the same account between Android Studio and my console. Eric, you smoked Lindsay on getting that second part done. She must have stepped away from her computer. All right. everyone ever meets in person, it's gonna be like a battle. All right. So again, this Google Services file, you don't really need to refer to it. If for some reason it didn't automatically pull it in, you can still get it. And again, it's under, I went to the project layout and under app, where Google Services lives. If for some reason it's not there, I'm going to go back here. Back. So now when I go into Firebase, I can see there's a tab here that with my F21 restaurant radar, and you can see that it's connected to Android. If it supports multiple different things, it will show it in here. If I click on this tile, it brings up all the different services that are available to you through Firestone. So you can see there's quite a bit here. We're not going to use all of it. We're going to use some of it. But that Google Services file that I talked about, it's up here under Project Overview. If for some reason yours didn't update, you can click on Project Settings. You can go down and you can actually just download that Google Services.json file. So if for some reason yours gets corrupted or you accidentally type it or something and no longer works, you can always just go and grab this Google Services file, again, from Project Settings. Right? You just go down, it's right there. And then you just have to put it into your Android Studio. Your Android Studio, just go to the project layout under app and put it right in there. You'll be good to go. All right, so let's close that. And this Firebase assistant here, it's, you know, the stuff below is just showing you some example type code. So we don't really need to do anything else that way. So I'm just going to hit this little minus sign in the upper right to collapse that. And you can always get back to it by going to Tools, Firebase if you need to. Now for me, because I'm going to publicly be putting stuff onto GitHub, if you look, there's, in my project level here, there's something called git ignore. So if I click on that file, it tells me what areas of the app shouldn't go onto GitHub. So anything in my build directory is not going to go onto GitHub. So I'm going to add, in my case, not in yours, I'm going to add Google Services.json. Now, because you're putting yours in a private repo, right, for your project, I'm going to need to be able to access that file. If you're really uncomfortable putting it into GitHub, even though it's in a private repo, you'll have to send me that file somehow else. Otherwise, your project won't run when I go to market down the road. Question from Eric, who's now very much starting to eclipse Lindsay in terms of questions in statements in the chat here. He said, which one? So you're talking about the git ignore. I'm at project level under app. That's where I put it, because that git ignore file was there, and that's where the Google Services is. It found Google Services when I started typing. So you're asking about this one here, I guess? Yeah, I don't know why there's two different ones, quickly. Yeah, I don't know. But if I do commit right now, you can see it's going to upload the latest git ignore file, but it's not picking up on my Google Services. Okay, and then I saw a message that when student doesn't see Google Services in the project, But when we went to drag and drop it, it said it's already there. Interesting. So if you go to project and under app, you can't see it. But if you drag that file to that exact same spot, it's there. That is curious. You could do it through your file manager as well. It's doing the same thing. Perhaps there's some oddity with how it's refreshing the screen. So the default spot for Android Studio is you go to your user, and it's under Android Studio projects under your user profile. You should be able to find it in here. So this is our restaurant rater here. So under app is Google services. So if you use your file manager, you're definitely going to get around any oddity with Android Studio. Okay, good. All right, so I'm going to close those git ignore files. So now we're on to the good stuff. Yeah, well, so in the chat it was like, I'm not sure why it's not showing in project level. I don't know. But if you can see it there in file manager, I'd say at this point, let's not worry. You could go to build a clean project, and that just kind of removes any kind of old stuff that's there, and then do a rebuild. And maybe, just maybe, for some reason it wasn't showing. I haven't experienced a problem like that with Android Studio. I believe you though. My fingers are crossed that it's going to be okay. So while that's building, I'm going to switch back to my Android view. And Java, my main activity here. So what we want to do is create a restaurant object and then store it into our database. And in order to do that, we're going to need a restaurant class. So I started at the beginning of our class saying that these model classes in Kotlin are, they're pretty light. So I'm going to right click. So I'm under my Android view, app, Java, this com.example, F21 restaurant rater. I'm going to right click and say new. And I'm going to say Kotlin class, not Java, Kotlin class. And I'm going to call it restaurant. And I'll add that to Git. And in my restaurant class, I'm going to add three variables, three instance variables. One's going to be for the ID, var ID string. And if you remember, the way Android does this, or sorry, the way Kotlin does this, is it aligns really well with UML class diagrams, where it's the name of our variable, colon, and then the data type. The question mark means that we don't know if it's null or not. And the reason that we're going to allow for null is because when we read from the database, we don't necessarily know what we're going to get. I mean, we should know, but there could be some oddity in there. So I can't assert with full confidence that it'll never be null. So I'm going to say could be null. And then I'm going to create a variable called name, the name of the restaurant. This data type will be string. And then the last thing we have is the rating that we gave the restaurant. So rating. And what's fascinating for me is that in Kotlin, that is the equivalent of scaffolding out an entire class with 3 variables, get and set methods included. This will work. And I think part of that is these variables aren't necessarily private and whatnot. This works out fine for us for what we're going to do in this course. So we've got our restaurant class, and now we can go to our main activity, create an instance of our restaurant, and then we can save it to Firestore. Okay, so I'm going to say val restaurant equals restaurant. So I'm going to create a variable called restaurant. Its data type will be restaurant. And then I'm going to use the set methods to pull the information out of the out of our activity. So I'm going to say restaurant. I don't have the ID yet. We're going to get that from the database side. But the name is going to be our restaurant edit text. String. Okay, so I'm going to ask this field here where I have the word pie to give me its text and convert that to a string. And I'm going to ask the rating. And spinner. Okay, so our array in the spinner held string objects. So I'm saying whatever was selected, give me the string. And then that should be a number because we shouldn't have been able to get there unless we have a 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. So convert that into an integer. So now we have a restaurant that has a name and a rating, and we need to connect to our Firestore to get the ID. And the Firestore is going to auto-generate these IDs for us. So we don't need to create them anyway. So and I found when I first started working the naming convention tough. There's Firebase and Firestore, and to me they're so similar sounding. Firebase is the entire this entire collection of services. So I go back to the home here. Firebase can handle authentication for us. It can handle Firestore, like database storage. You can do analytics, performance data, all kinds of stuff in Firebase. It's like the whole infrastructure. Firestore is strictly the storing and retrieval of data. So it's just like one piece of Firebase. So to get our restaurant ID, I need to connect to the database. So I'm going to create a variable called database, DB. And we say Firebase Firestore dot get instance. So that is connecting us up to the Firestore instance itself. So that's sort of like going to what's going to be this button here. And then, and I may have to click that button before this will work, but we'll see. Then is something called a collection. So if we don't have the collection initially, it will automatically add it. If you do have the collection, then it will augment to it. So it's actually pretty neat how this works. A collection in SQL terms, or like MySQL terms, would be like your table or your database. The collection's like a database. So here, I'm going to call this call 21. We'll just call it restaurants. Okay, so if the collection doesn't exist, we're going to add it. And all we have to do now is we say restaurant ID equals db document ID. You can sort of see when I type that really quickly, it says ID is really from the method get ID. So what this does is you have a collection, which is sort of like an entire database. Inside of a collection are documents. Documents would be like equivalent to rows in a table in a MySQL database. So we're basically asking for a new row in an existing table and to get that ID. So I'm trying to help you understand where the similarities to what this is already. Let's see. So if I had, this is good old MySQL. If I had a database that had these 11 cameras on it, if I go to add a new camera, it would automatically give me the camera ID of 12, right? It would auto increment by 1. What the algorithm is used inside of Firebase, I'm not sure what the algorithm is, but they give you like an index. They give you a very convoluted string of letters and characters, but it's very fast to look it up. So that's what we're doing when we do this .id. And then what we're going to do from there is we're going to say so again, a document's like a row in a traditional database. We're going to say db.document, and we're going to pass in our restaurant object. And the act of documenting or adding a record, it needs to have a name. So what it's complaining about here, if I read this, it says what it needs is a string. So it needs some way to uniquely identify this document. And what it found is an entire restaurant object. Now I have an ID, which is going to uniquely identify my restaurant. So I'm going to use that. Let me say ID. Now we get a new problem. So the problem here is that the ID could be null. Well, it won't be because we just got the ID in the previous step, or it would have crashed. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to assert that it is not null. And I do that by adding 2 exclamation points. So this is the null protection that Kotlin's built in, is that if something could be null, it won't let you use it in a field where it has to not be null. So because I know that I have an ID from this line, I'm going to use it here. And then I'm going to say set. So now I'm adding the actual restaurant into the database. Make sense? So let's refresh, reload here, build a new Gradle. And I'm just going to go into my console for a second here. So I'm in my Firebase console, and I'm going to click on Cloud Firestore. I think you have to enable this first. And here it says create a database. So I'm just going to go back so that everyone can do this. So I've gone back to my console in Firebase. And in here, where it says Cloud Firestore, I'm going to click on that. And if you're not seeing these, this is the home screen. So in your Firebase, click on Home. You can see this tile. And now that we're in the database section, you can see there's videos in here and how it all works. I'm going to say create database. You have two choices. One is start in production mode, and one is start in test mode. We're going to start in test mode. And basically what it says is anyone who's got the credentials to access your Firestore can get in. Over time, we'll go into production mode, and then it'll be you have to grant me explicit access to your Firestore in order to let that work. So I'm just going to start it in test mode. You can see here, it put a timestamp in here of 30 days, and we'll have to go in and down the road, and we'll change that. So I'm going to say next, test mode, and next. And then you have to pick a location. And as you can see, we basically got US and Europe and Asia. I don't think there's any defaults for Canada or anything like that. So I'm just going to take the default one that came up, which is NAM5, US Central. And I'm going to say enable. And so going back to the language collections and documents and things like that, when we start adding records here, we'll come back to this screen, and we're going to see the difference between a collection, a document, and we'll go from there. So back to my Android Studio, make sure I've got the latest and greatest on here. And for those that are fast at typing in the chat, what is the best restaurant to go to? You can go anywhere. Where would you go? This is your chance, Eric. Eric, it was your chance. Lindsay took the pole position again. So the faux house, and on a scale of 1 to 5, would you say it's a 4, a 5? Miles says a 1. British is yeah, I'm gonna give it a 4. Lindsay says it's a 5. Now, Lindsay, you live out east, though, right? So maybe we're talking about different restaurants. Okay. So I'm gonna say add restaurant, and it doesn't give us really any indication. So the user experience is a little bit broken. Did it work? Did it not work? Well, we didn't get a toast saying add information. That's all we have. So let's go back into our console now. And when you come back, it'll be blank, but hit refresh. Now what we're seeing here is we have a collection called restaurants. In that collection of restaurants is a document with this. That's the ID from our particular faux house, right? Or is it fa? I'm getting confused. Faux, fa. Anyways, that's the ID that was auto-generated. And as you can see, it's not like 1, 2, 3, 4. It's a very unique string. It's already indexed. And the thing is, with these NoSQL databases, is they're designed so that as the records grow, they search, because these are indexed, the search takes nearly the same amount of time, whether you have, a few million records or a billion records. Okay. So let's see. I see a few people that said, so mine broke. We're going to add some error handling, and we're going to look at some logging. But I think first, let's take a little break. We've been at it 40 some minutes now, I think, 35 minutes. So let's take just a 5-minute break. I think last time we had 15. And then let's add some error handling to our code and we can maybe see what's going on with yours. So it's 150. How about we come back at 155?